What's up guys, Joe Cadwell here. Today I'm going to be showing you how to use Adobe Premiere Pro, and this is going to be a very basic tutorial. So if you kind of already know how to use Premiere, this is probably not the video for you, but I will be coming out with some more advanced techniques later on. For now, we're going to be starting out with, once you open up the program, what are you looking at? What do the windows do? Super basic stuff. So if you're interested in getting into Premiere, you want to learn how to use some more advanced editing software other than like Movie Maker or something like that, this is going to be a tutorial for you. You can at least see what it looks like before you go ahead and buy it, because it's a little bit of money. But I think it's well worth it. I think the entire Adobe Creative Suite is worth it. But for now, we're just talking about Premiere, so let's get into it. Okay guys, so when you open up Adobe Premiere Pro, the very first thing you're going to see is this window here. I'm not going to go too in-depth on what this is, but basically you can either open up a new project or you can open up an existing project that you have. I'm going to go ahead and assume that nobody has any projects, so let's go ahead and go to New Project. So I'm going to click that. That's going to pop up this little dialog box here. The most important stuff to know off of all of this is the name of your project. So what are we going to call this? I'm going to go ahead and call this, I have this right here at Course 001 Intro, so I'm going to make that the title of this project. This is going to be the very first tutorial I do on Premiere. Also, the next thing you want to do is look at the location. Where do you want this saved? Pretty self-explanatory. You should know how to do this. I'm going to save it into this window I have here. So select this folder. Now we're saving that there. All this general stuff, you can pretty much leave that how it is. I would suggest changing your renderer to CUDA if you have it. If you don't, you have to go wherever you got, but go with CUDA or get a better graphics card. Next is the scratch disk. This is where do you want all of the audio preview files and render files, all these files that Premiere is pretty much going to create throughout this process. Where do you want those saved? I always save it into the same main folder as my project. So you'll notice Premiere Pro Training, Course 01 Intro, Premiere Pro Training, Course 01 Intro. And by default that happens. So you won't have to go in here and change each one of these things. It'll just do that. But if you have like two hard drives, or you have like a scratch hard drive that you want to manually go and change that to, you can do that there. Other than that, we're good to go. So we're going to hit OK. Project already exists. Because I made this project already, I'm going to hit yes. I'm going to override it with this new project I'm making now because I'm redoing it anyway. So now we're in Premiere. This is probably not what your Premiere is looking like. Your interface, your workspace is probably different. So let's all go to Window, Workspace, Editing. We're going to go to this one right here. I'll get into what those different workspaces are later on and how you can customize your own workspace. That'll be a different tutorial. But for now, we're going to go into this one so we're all on the same page and I can explain what all this stuff is to actually start making some edits. It might be kind of scary at first if you don't know what you're looking at, but it's not really that difficult once you know what it is. The first one that's most important is right down here. This is going to be Project Window. Down here, this is where all of your footage, all of your voiceovers, your graphics, your music, your titles, anything that goes into the project itself with the finished video is going to be housed in this window. We want to make sure that this window stays as organized as possible. That's just good editing techniques. A lot of people don't do that because they just want to get the edit done. I highly recommend you organize this and make it one of your first priorities. So what I always do is come in, if you right click, you can go to New Bin, and that'll open up a folder. So this folder is just going to house everything that we want to put in it. So what do we want in that folder? Let's go ahead and make this called Footage. So now anytime we bring in footage, we're going to put it in that folder. Another one I usually make a lot is an audio bin. And in that audio bin, I will make a VO bin. So that'll have my voiceovers. I'll put that in the audio folder. So now you can see we have folders inside of folders. Or I'll make a music bin. Music bin. And you can see that you have all of these bins going in there. So I'm going to twirl all these up, twirl that up, twirl that up. One thing you can do instead of right click new bin every time, this is more of keystrokes, and I suggest learning keystrokes, but it's not something that should be on your priority list right in the beginning. But it's just something that you're going to want to start doing. It'll just help make you go faster throughout the process. But if you hit Control B or Command B on a Mac, it'll open up a new bin, just like if you were to right click new bin. Now I have all these bins that I don't really want. If I hit Control or Command Z, Control Z, Command Z, that'll undo whatever I just did. That's pretty standard throughout all of software. It's not just Premiere, but just Control Z, Command Z on a Mac, that'll undo stuff for you. So once we start getting this organized and having this ready to go, the only other thing I want to do right now for this tutorial is bring in a piece of video. So I'm going to right click and go to Import. And I'm going to select whatever this video is right here. This is just a time lapse I shot a while back. of me shooting another time lapse. So it's kind of like time lapse inception. So let's bring that in. And I'm going to drop that in my footage folder. So now I have inside my footage folder, I have this clip. Once I have this clip in here, how do I want to view it? How can I view this clip? All I see right now is that it's a clip that is footage and it has audio, but how can I actually see what that audio and footage is? If I double click on this, that's going to pop up open right here in what's called the source monitor. So you'll see it says source. This is the source monitor. There's two monitors that are going to open up when we go to Window, Workspaces, Editing, which is what we're in right now. When we open that up, you're going to have source monitor and you're going to have the program monitor. Program monitor is going to be the final finished edit. Everything that we're doing, everything that we're creating is going to show up in this window eventually. We're not there yet. But for right now, we're looking at the source. The source is the entire clip that you have selected, which right now we have 06 hotel room selected. That's going to show us this entire clip without any edits to it. So beginning to end, start recording to end recording, that whole clip is showing up in here. So there's a couple of different ways to make an edit. I'm going to show you guys the way I edit, which is not particularly the best way to edit, but I love this way of editing because I get to see everything that I'm doing all at one time. Right now I'm just going to left click on this clip and you see the little hands gripping it. I'm going to drag it down here into the timeline window, and that's going to bring up all these options. And I'll get into all this stuff in a second here, but there's another way you could have done that too, is instead of double clicking this to bring it up into the source, we could have just grabbed it right from here and drug it over. So there's two ways to bring that down. And this is, again, is the whole clip. It's unedited. There's no edits in this yet. I'm going to show you guys later on in a different video how to make edits, but for now, I just want to show you what all these windows are. So we're going to go ahead and select this right here and delete it. I hit the delete button. All I did was highlight, click, drag and highlight, and then hit delete once it was highlighted. I'm looking over here at my project window, and it's starting to get out of hand. I mean, it's not like really crazy out of hand compared to what I've seen before, but I have this sequence, that's a sequence now, and it's all by itself. I want to put that in a folder just to keep it organized. So let's go to new bin, call this sequence, and go ahead and drop that in there. So now we have our sequence folder, we have our footage folder, everything's nice and organized right there. Okay, so now that we have this all cleaned up again, let's go back over here to the timeline. And in the timeline up at the top, we're gonna have our time code. The time code is gonna be pretty much from 0 until, I think it can go to infinity, really. You can just keep going forever. But the time code is going to tell me exactly what frame I'm on. So I'm going to just hit the left and right arrow keys now. I'm hitting right. And what that's doing is telling me at 0 hours, 0 minutes, 4 seconds, and 8 frames, or 9 frames, or 10 frames, what actual literal frame I'm on down here in my timeline. So if I start making edits and I have all these things and I have to shave off 5 frames of something, I can do that just by going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'll make a cut there and go ahead and edit that. While I'm talking about the cuts, here's 2 ways to make a cut. I'm going to show you these real quick because I'll get into this later on. But for now, we can click the razor tool, or you can hit C on the keyboard, and that'll bring up this tool. It'll look like this. It looks like a little razor with some dotted lines. And you can put it right there on the timeline and just go ahead and click. And then once you do that, you literally have 2 separate clips now. So that's making an edit. You can do that, and I can switch the order of these if I want to. I can do anything I want to. I'm going to hit Ctrl+Z a few times and undo that. The way I do it is when you have your timeline, once you get to the frame that you want, and again, if you want to really get nitty-gritty, you can go left and right to find that frame that you want to cut on. And when you find it, hit Control or Command K on the keyboard. It's Control or Command K, and that'll make the edit for you. So you won't have to go over here, click the razor tool, drag it over, find that clip, that frame, and then select it again. You won't have to do all that. I made Control+Z. You'll just move your timeline. I want to make the edit here, which I already got one, and I want to move down and make an edit there. Control or Command K, boom, got myself an edit. And to switch from the razor tool, which is if I hit C, it'll bring up the razor tool. So switch back to my arrow. If I hit V, that'll bring my arrow back, okay? So now I have this clip that I've made an edit into, and I'm saying, oh yeah, I love that. I want to keep this clip, whatever that is. I can take this, delete it, take this, delete it. And all I did was hit delete. And now I can take this clip and drag it wherever I want to on this timeline. That allows me to freely move it however I want. Again, if you know how to edit and you're watching this video for some reason, I know that's not the best way to edit, but that is the way I edit, and I do it the fastest that way. And I think it's because I learned it that way. Anyway, once you have your clip and you've already made your edits and you're all done with it again, all that's showing up here in the program window, let's just say if I went back to footage and I dragged this clip in again, and I wanted my video to go from this clip to black to this. If I hit the space bar to press play, space is play and stop, it'll play just like that, and you get to see the edits that I've made, which aren't really very many edits or even good edits at this point, but you'll get to see all that. So again, I'm gonna highlight that, hit delete, get rid of it for now because all I want to see is this. All that shows up in your program window. That's what that is. The program monitor shows you all the edits that you've made. The source monitor shows you what your source footage looks like unedited. So again, you double click the footage, comes up here, you can scrub through that and find out where you want. And then there's lots of ways you can select the part you want from here, get that down here in the timeline. If you click and drag, that's the easiest way to do it. Just so you know real quick, if you only click this little thing right here, this little frame, and hold that, it'll only bring in video. And if you only click this here, that's the little waveform, that'll only bring in the audio. This clip doesn't have any audio, so I'm not going to be able to show you that, but yeah, that's how that works. The next thing we have is this little selection box here, all these things. I mean, I went over the razor tool with you, what that does, but this whole window is all tools that you can use to make edits and make graphics and all kinds of cool stuff. You have abilities to do with that. I don't really use any of these tools because I mostly use the keystrokes, but the ones that are probably pretty handy and most useful is you have this is a text tool. It's pretty standard throughout other programs and things, so you can use that to make some graphics and titles and stuff for your videos, make them look a little more interesting or get some info that you forgot to say into your video. Right here, again, you have the razor tool. That's you press C to get the razor tool. That'll make an edit, so if you forgot that, Command or Control K is to make an edit. Don't forget that. That's how you make an edit, Command or Control K. But if you forgot, you can hit this razor tool. It looks like this, and again, you could click anywhere in the timeline and it'll splice it for you. Control Z will undo that. These two tools are pretty helpful, but I'm not going to go into those right now. They're a little more advanced for this tutorial. Last one is the selection tool. That's the regular arrow that I have now. So if we did go to the razor tool, so if I hit C, that'll bring up the razor tool. If I want to go back to my arrow without having to come over and click to it, I could hit V on the keyboard, V, the letter V, and that'll bring up this. So now C brings up my razor tool, V brings up my regular pointer. Or you can click the pointer, click the razor tool, whatever one you want to do. It'll do both. That's all the things in the tools that I'm going to go over for now. Right now, you have the project window. That's where all your stuff is saved. Everything about the project is in here. Every piece of material you're going to use. Source monitor lets you see a waveform for an audio clip or the video and hear the audio for a raw clip. Timeline lets you make edits down here. And over here you have the program monitor, which will let you see all the edits that you've made. The only other thing I'm looking at that I see on here that I haven't gone over yet, there's a couple things, but off of what I see is right here we have these waveforms, which if I had audio in this clip, as I scrub through it, you would see that kind of bounce around. So that's just going to monitor your audio for you, which unless you're doing audio work, is not really useful, but once you start wanting to fix your audio a little bit, you'll start paying attention to that. Up here on the top left, we can click into these different sub panels here, and I'm going to go through a couple of these, not all of them, but a couple. Right now we have effects controls. So if I click on that, nothing's in there. But if I select a clip, so if I want to select this edit that we made down here, you can see that now we can control what this clip looks like. So when I shot this, if I decided, I want to be a lot closer than I am right now, I want to punch in a little bit, I could select this clip, go to scale, and scale it up to, let's say, 120. Now, you'll see over here in the program monitor that we've actually punched into it. So we got a different, we went from like a wide shot to a little bit more of a medium shot, right? Let's say if I wanted to do that over time, how does that happen? Well, we can start this back at 100. So that'll bring it back to its full resolution. And I'm going to hit this right here. It's a stopwatch. I'm going to click that, and it creates what's called the keyframe. The keyframe lets me go, this keyframe will let me go from this particular time in the time code, which at this point is 2:11. It's 2 seconds and 11 frames, into, let's say we go to 4 seconds and 2 frames. We could punch that up to 120. I click on it, type in the number I want, and hit enter. And that creates another keyframe. So now we have a keyframe that's at 100, and I can tell that here. And it goes up to 120, which if I actually get on the keyframe there, you can click these little things. It'll bounce between your keyframes for you. So if I go to this keyframe, I'll be at 120. So that's saying at 2 seconds and 11 frames, we want the scale to be at 100. And if I scrub through, you can see the numbers actually changing here. They're changing on their own to 120. I'm going to get right on that clip by clicking that, right on that keyframe, to 120 at 4 seconds and 2 frames. So that's how we'll do some kind of motion. So you'll see over here on the program monitor now that we're actually punching in over time, which is a pretty cool effect. It looks pretty nice. Maybe you want to keep that. That's what you want, right? So that's what we did. So that's a quick way to make like a little edit. Again, I'll get more into this in a different tutorial. That's not for right now, but that's what we're looking at here. So when we go to effects controls, the things we can control are the position, the scale. So if I move the position, I can actually move this whole shot left or right, or up and down. And if I keyframe stuff, I can do left and right and up and down at the same time. By default, these are at 960 and 540, and that is the direct center of a 1920 by 1080 composition, which is what this footage is, 1920 by 1080 full HD. Down here we have rotation, so you can rotate the shot if you want to. I'm going to hit Ctrl+Z, undo that. Anchor point, that's not something we're going to worry about right now, because that's if you're trying to make some really crazy looking edits. The opacity, if we wanted to see through it, if I crank this down, you'll see it's getting blacker. That's only because behind this clip, if I would turn this off, hit the little eyeball, it'll turn the clip on or off, it's black. So if we see through the clip, I'm going to turn it back on. If we see 50% through this clip, we're going to see the black. That's why it's getting darker instead of actually getting what would look like transparency. Here's some blending modes. If you know what those are, you can use those. I'm not going to get into that right now because that's more than I want to talk about. And then underneath, that was all your video effects. You have audio effects, and down here, you can change the volume. You can change whether it's playing on a left or right channel. You can Panner will let you go between the left and right channel. Lots of different little things that are pretty useless to me other than the volume. I mess with the volume a lot, but I don't really do left and right unless I'm doing some really, really technical stuff. But yeah, they have all that. Now let's say you want to do something to your footage that doesn't exist in these set of options here. You can come back down here to where your project folder, and if you go to effects, click on that, here's a whole list, all already subcategorized in all kinds of different ways for you to do video transitions, video effects, audio transitions, audio effects, and do some color grading or color correction, which again is also in, those are presets. The actual color tools are going to be in video effects, which if you're looking to do coloring, you would go to Lumetri, which I don't ever really type anything in there. I mean, I don't actually look for these things. I just click into the search bar, type in Lumetri, space color, and then you have a Lumetri color effect that you can click and drag directly on there. Now you'll see up here in my video effects, I have a Lumetri color effect that I can do stuff to, which again, further than what I want to talk about right now, but you can. That's all. The only other thing I want to talk about right now is I'm going to go ahead and delete this clip, get it back to where we were when we started here. So now we have a program monitor with nothing in it. We have a timeline, a source monitor, and a project window here. The only other thing I really want to talk about is that this stuff is completely customizable. So when I'm doing my basic edits, if I go to Window, Workspace, and go down to Josie, this is one I made myself. If I click that, this is what I like my source to look like, my project, my workspace. I want my workspace to look like this. And that's just because I'm used to it. I love having a ton of space down here for my timeline because that's mostly what I'm looking at whenever I'm editing. I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at my project window up here. I'm sorry, my program monitor. This is just me personally how I like it, but if you want to learn how to change all this up, I will do that in another tutorial later on, so you can check that one out too. Okay guys, so that was a quick look at Premiere. That was run through of the workspaces and what each window does. And so hopefully you enjoyed that tutorial. I know it was really, really basic, but if you're interested in editing and you want to step your game up to a new editing software instead of something like Movie Maker or whatever Mac has, I guess maybe that's Movie Maker, I don't know. But anyway, if you want to use Premiere to start editing. That's a quick glance at it. I'm going to do the same thing for After Effects and Photoshop soon, and I'm definitely going to start getting into more technical tutorials. So, but this is tutorial number 1. So let me know how you think I did, what I should improve. If I went too fast, too slow, or talked too much, repeated the same things, that'd be awesome if you could help me out with that. So catch you guys later.